Andrew thrashed on the carpet for a moment and then became still as a new change came over his body. Every pore on his body started exuding steaming clouds of foul-smelling aldehyde-laden vapors as his body writhed on the floor in paroxysms of bone and muscle-wrenching agony as his anatomy reorganized itself from within. The women seemed amused by the odd hills and valleys that appeared on his skin as his skeletal structure and internal organs transmogrified themselves in hideous ways. At one moment his belly seemed to collapse upon itself, leaving a shrunken area between the bottom of his ribcage and the top of his pelvis that seemed to be filled with a handful of writhing grass snakes squirming over his spine. Then his belly resized itself to that of a small child while the left side of his ribcage broke free of his sternum with an audible repetitive snapping noise as the cartilages that held his ribs in place separated. The two women watched as his detached right ribs seemed to dissolve in fraction of a second, collapsing his right lung and allowing the throbbing outline of his heart to be seen beneath the thin covering of skin as it pumped fiercely in an attempt to survive the ordeal. The cloud of condensing steam from the carpet grew in thickness until it became an obscuring white fog that crawled amoeba-like over his motionless torso to screen his body from the view of the two women who sat less than 6 feet away from him. They never saw the destruction of the right side of his ribcage, although they could hear the machine gun cracks of his sternal cartilages and loud wheezing that accompanied his final gasp as his left lung collapsed and he began to strangle for lack of air. Within seconds, Andrew's feet disappeared from view as he was completely inundated by the dense fog that obliterated the final details of his transmogrification. Krystyn smiled as she thought for the 100th time how much the effects of her spell appeared as if she had conjured up a half-alive demonic vapor to swallow her victim and feast on their manhood instead of being a simple manifestation of a spell to reduce another male twerp to his proper place in life. It was only fitting that a man should be reduced to his proper position while enclosed within a foul-smelling effluvium that reeked of infernal, soul-damning torment amidst the torturous sounds of their joints being rent asunder as the spell broke and refashioned the skeletal bones of their limbs and torsos into that of the little boys that they truly were. As she watched, eddies in the cloud formed and were whisked away by the room's air-conditioning ducts, exposing the sweat-drenched body that lay supine on the carpet in helpless horror and bone-breaking pain. Although his torso was still covered, his hands and arms became visible as the changes slowed down due to a lack of fuel. The two women watched in spellbound fascination as his fingers and toes began to draw themselves into the structural bodies of his hands and feet. Once his fingers and toes were gone, his arms and legs followed suit, drawing themselves backwards into their respective skeletal girdles as they diminished in circumference.